It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Lagos. The sky is cloudy, suggesting that it might rain later in the, if it is actually not raining in some parts of Lagos. Well, thank God today is Friday. Thank God today is Friday. Good morning, Moses.
Good morning.
Good morning, Fina.
Good morning, Chikuma.
So you're ready to get ready for the party at?
Later today?
Where is the party at?
Where's the party at?
Yes.
Well, we'll crash any party that we see today.
Oh, okay.
The Senate President once told us, anywhere you see food, go in and eat. So we are going to put to practice.
They will be obedient.
What the man preached the other time.
Exactly. That's what we're
Have
doing
you seen
today.
this coming?
Oh, so, okay, you didn't see it come. Oh, good morning and thanks for joining us on VOP this morning. I am Chukwuma Okoro. And on the show, good morning. Goodluck Jonathan to run in 2027 presidential race. Says close associate. And away from that, 30 states splurged 11.75 billion naira on foreign travel. Secure zero investment.
And also, more than 300 former terrorists undergoing rehabilitation in Gombe under the Tinubu's government. Well, these are the conversations that we'll be focusing on this morning. But there are other conversations also that we will touch on in the course of the program. I'm Moses Humphrey.
And I'm Fina Chukwu, and talking about other stories that have trended, or rather that's actually still trending, that's keeping the social media buzz. And a decision on disciplinary action against Nyesom Wike over alleged anti-party activities is expected to be made, I beg your pardon, next week. Yes, so the party chieftains are discussed Wike's faith in PDP. The leadership of the People's Democratic Party, says that the South Zonal chairman of the party and all that chieftain of the party actually will decide the fate of Wike. The matter is being reviewed by top PDP stakeholders, and recommendations are said to have been submitted to the appropriate disciplinary committees. The case against Wike, who has been accused of working against the party's interests during recent elections, is being considered with caution due to the political implications involved. It was also indicated that consultations with national leaders are being carried out to ensure that any action taken in line with the party's constitution and long-term unity will be brokered in the PDP. Now, the question is, how will this particular, disciplinary committee come up? What actually should be, or what could be their outcome of this meeting? Because we've heard Wike told that he is the person that made the party the way the party is, and nothing is going to happen. And not just that, too. Some of the things that Nyesom Wike actually postulated for the party is what they are doing. You recall the other day he was singing that we won, more like a victorious chant after the PDP National Working Committee also decided to make Samuel Anyanwu the national secretary of the party. And this particular thing, or more actually, that happens to be the internal wrangling of the party, is making some persons, some political bigwigs who have been with the party, to exit. Some persons are saying, let them go. Others are saying, no, they cannot go. We need them back in the party. But now that they are going to decide his fate, whether he's still going to be a party member or not, next week we'll get to know what that will also, turn out to be. But I would say, the Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, we cannot just come up and rule out the fact that, according to him, he bought forms for so many state governors. And he also bought forms single-handedly for so many other persons who happens to be occupying one position or another in the party, or who have been elected also, to be in one position or another, maybe within the National Assembly and all that. Now, how possible is it going to be for the National Working Committee and members or the chieftain of the party to oust him from the party, given the fact that he is more like working with his cronies, close allies in that particular party? Then also, he will also tell them that before he decided to work for APC under this particular administration, he wrote a letter to the party, and the party accepted that he can go on to do that. But I don't really know what is really happening in PDP as a political party, as the number one opposition party, if I'm to use that word, in Nigeria. But anyway, let's see how it turns out. Let's see what will happen to Wike, whether he's going to be party chieftain or party member again, or maybe his fate will make or show him the door.
Well, Fina, talking about PDP being the major opposition party, you recall a certain chieftain of the PDP said that the PDP wasn't primed to be an opposition party, that it was primed for governance. And that is why it was able for them to stay for 16 years uninterrupted. And so now that they are out of power, they are finding it difficult playing the role of the opposition. Anyway, that's about being an opposition. But I'm just tired of suspending Wike today, suspending Wike tomorrow, suspending Wike next week. Let them suspend Wike.
Can they do it?
No. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Next week, they said next week will come and go, and we'll see what will happen. Because this is not the first time they are talking about setting up a certain disciplinary committee, trying Wike for anti-party activities. And at a point, Wike asked them, am I the only person, who took part in anti-party activities? And people are asking, how about the G5 governors? The years of Wike, Sheyi Makinde, Okeze Ikpeazu, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, and Samuel Otom. All these people, some of them played anti-party activities. They didn't support Atiku Abubakar in the 2023 general election. Why is it that the spotlight is always on Nyesom Wike? Why don't you talk about other people? And so the moment you put the spotlight on him, you create the impression that, in fact, you give him a larger-than-life image within the party, which likely he is because of his antecedents within the party. I keep going back to 2015 when they lost the election. Nobody wanted to touch the PDP with a long pole. It was Wike that even came out, started financing and doing all of that. So he built more like some kind of cartel around himself within the PDP structure. And now it's very difficult for the PDP to dismantle that structure. So what do you expect? The other day, Wike said, until you recognize my faction of the South Zonal Executive, there won't be peace in the PDP. I mean, when a man makes bold to say that, what does that tell you? He has capital within the party. He has influence within the party. And I'm not sure it will be easy to suspend, much less expel Wike from the PDP. Even if you do that, his henchmen inside will still cause the trouble, whatever trouble, in quotes, that Wike is supposedly causing within the PDP. The other day, Wike said the problem within the PDP is over because Atiku Abubakar has left. And in another breath, he said, Atiku, why did you leave the party? You had the problem of the party. And when you left with a chunk of the party. So if you put all of these things together, it is difficult to situate, actually, what is going on in the PDP. So when people say that that PDP is dead as a political party, it could either be neither here. In fact, it's neither here nor there. It's difficult to place a finger. But like I said, next week is around the corner. Let's see what happens to Wike within the PDP.
Oh, well, the Wike factor in the PDP, that's one factor, that's one thing that will continue to haunt the PDP. Yes, he builds the party when every other person abandoned it, but he's also the reason the party is crawling right now. In fact, crawling on its belly right now, as it were. You talk about the G5 governors, you can say they did engage in anti-party activities, but Wike took it steps higher. I mean, Wike got into bed with the opposition. Wike decided to attack party secretariat, his own party that he built, secretariat, made it because of non-payment of land use charge, and a lot. He has done so much.
I
know you.
You know I would disagree with you because if Wike didn't carry out, what he did in Wadata, had people say, it's because it is your party and all of that. So the guy had to come out clean. So you can't hold that against him.
Basically,
I'm sorry. Mind you, before he went to hobnob with the opposition,
he wrote a letter
to the NWC,
and
they approved.
NWC that he basically put in there.
But did he pen down the
NWC
did anybody raise objection? Nobody raised objection.
Exactly.
That we can say are his own goons.
But nobody raised objection. Even the against us, the contrarians within the NWC, and the bottom line is, didn't raise objection.
Wike held the PDP together, and it is the same Wike that is tearing the PDP down.
He who pays the piper
dictates the tune.
If the elders in the PDP have what it takes, then they should go ahead and suspend him if they can.
No, this conversation is getting very interesting. Who are the elders in the PDP now?
The founding fathers.
Where are they?
The founding fathers. They are there. They may not have the financial capital.
No, can you name them?
Goodluck Jonathan is there, Edwin Clark is there. And some of the persons are there too, talking. Yeah. I'm just talking to
They may not have, these people may not have the financial capital.
Okay.
But there are people that have
the BOT.
Yes, there are people that have been in the PDP way before all of this started. So these are people that have said, look, we will stick to it. We will hold the PDP. I mean, the Sarakis are still there.
Okay.
They are still there.
He's the chairman
And they're-
of the Reconciliation Committee.
Yes, and they're still trying to make things work. So if they have what it takes, they may not have the financial muscle that WK has.
So in essence, what you're saying is that they were not futuristic in thinking. They didn't see all of these things coming when
They
they
probably
abandoned the
didn't see
party in
it
2015.
I made a mistake earlier. I was calling
Okay.
him over the man. I've forgotten that Pa Edwin Clark is no more.
I
You know,
was
like,
wondering.
I was like, Pa Edwin Clark, I'm so sorry. God rest his soul. But you know, we should also understand that some other political chiefs and Damagun is still there, he's still talking. You know, so many presidents.
Dama what?
When you see,
He's a big guy.
Chukwuma,
He's a big
you
guy
like
in
to,
Japan.
you
He's a
like,
big guy in Japan.
you're holding on to the fact that Atiku and the rest abandoned the party in 2015.
Because I'm
the
a
party
realist.
lost, like you rightly said.
Okay.
PDP was primed for leadership, not to be in the opposition. So it was a shocker to
When
them
they left.
that they lost. So it took some time for them to come back on their feet, and they needed somebody.
Okay, like 10 years to put the acts together.
Not 10 years. It wasn't up. to
No, it's
They
it's 10
needed
years
somebody
now.
at that time. They
They
needed
lost
somebody to, hold the different people in the party together. And Wike was that man.
Okay.
Now, of what benefit would it be to his legacy if, after holding the party together, he comes back years later to be the one to tear the party down? Then what legacy
No,
is
he
he trying
said,
to hold
Wike
on
says
to?
he's building the party, not tearing it down.
Building the party around himself.
Interesting.
Then it's a party that cannot stand the test of time.
Why is he building it
if it's all
around
built
himself?
around himself.
How?
If you're putting people in positions and you expect them to do your bidding every time, then you're building it around
So what
himself.
happens to the majority? Is he the only person that he's not even a member of the NWC? Does he have a vote there?
But we know
doesn't.
he has-
He's not even a member of NEC.
he-
But he
Does
has
have
his
a vote?
cronies.
He doesn't
allies.
necessarily
His
have to be a
cronies.
member.
Yeah, he has cronies,
he has
yeah.
people there. He has people
Exactly.
that he has sponsored
That's
to be
cronies.
there.
Maybe he's the Al Capone of our time.
He's not doing a good job at it.
Really?
Yes.
Are you serious at this point in time?
If he wants to be if he wants to be the Al Capone, he should do a good job at it.
I'm waiting for next
And
week.
Al Capone,
I can't wait. I can't wait for
a-
next week to come. Let's know what will happen.
An Al Capone will give people the chance to do what they want to do.
Really?
You don't necessarily need to, put them under your claws all the time.
Okay, at this point, I have to be clear. I don't. What Mrs. is making it look like I'm supporting what Wike is doing.
No,
I'm
it's
just
not-
saying
it's
what
not.
is going on in the PDP.
We're having a conversation.
We are having a conversation,
Yes.
So, but like Fina said, and the position I took earlier, let us see how
Next
it
week.
pans out next week.
Exactly.
Whether he'll be suspended.
They won't suspend him next week.
Oh, okay. So what would that happen if they
I
don't
can
suspend him?
prophesy.
Okay. Prophet Moses. Anyway,
Yes.
let's move away from that and get into the second banter. Former senator from Niger State, Senator Kontagora, has reportedly died after a critical surgical procedure was delayed by a hospital due to an outstanding balance of $15,000. Well, according to sources close to the family, the former lawmaker's condition had been deemed urgent, but the required surgery was withheld by the medical facility until the full payment was made. Despite repeated appeals by relatives and associates, assistance was not granted in time, and the necessary funds were not released promptly. It was alleged that administrative delays and financial bottlenecks contributed to the tragic outcome. While Contagora's death has since sparked outrage, with many questioning the inaccessibility of emergency health care and the systemic issues surrounding treatment of public figures once they leave office. The situation is being viewed by critics as a reflection of the broader crisis in Nigeria's healthcare system, where lives are often lost due to avoidable delays and financial constraints. Well, unfortunately, our hearts go out to the family of Senator Kontagora. It's unfortunate the circumstances under which he lost his life. Former senator, they required a $15,000. $15,000. That's about. It's in excess of. It's more than 20 million naira. So
Of course, yes.
Yes, I'm wondering the kind of procedure that will be. People who have health challenges, and it doesn't come cheap. But the fact of it is that he was a former senator. He served his people. He served his constituents. And I understand that the state governor also put up assistance. They were actually looking for $30,000. The state governor put up assistance, and all they were able to gather was $15,000. And I'm asking, why would they even charge in dollars? The hospital. We are talking about
The hospital is here in Nigeria, right?
Yes,
The
it
hospital
is.
is here in
It's
Nigeria.
Because I'm trying to get to the story.
The hospital
now.
is here in Nigeria.
It's in Abuja.
It's in Abuja, and
Yeah.
they are charging in dollars.
Yeah.
Why would that be? And the governor couldn't even, he is highly placed. In Nigeria here, let's be very realistic. We play this kind of big man politics. It wouldn't have mattered. These things happen to ordinary people.
On a norm.
On a norm, every day. And it doesn't get the spotlight. It is not highlighted. Except when somebody that is highly placed, is affected. So I call it the big man syndrome politics that we play in Nigeria. So why don't we reduce this thing to the level where if it shouldn't happen to a senator, it shouldn't also happen maybe to a cyclist or a keke rider and all of that. But unfortunately, my worry in all of this is that why would the hospital insist on a full down payment before you take treatment? What happened to the Hippocratic oath and all of that? Doctors are supposed to save lives. I understand that, look, they also run into trouble with people. When people are treated, they are unable to foot the bill. But why don't you just save the life first before talking about finances? You could hold the person hostage and say until the monies are paid up and all of that. He's a former senator. The governor could help his co-senators and all of that. I'm lost for words. I don't even know what to say.
I think it's high time we'll try as much as we can to be able to put these things the way they should be, whereby the hospital policy, is different from doctors doing their job. You understand? Now, for such a hospital, when I saw that, it was like, I know the hospital you're talking about, close to my estate and all that. Now, if, for example, you have a hospital that says you pay us in full before anything is being done, this patient or this particular person must not only have a contact with the doctors on set. You're talking with the administrative team of the hospital. That's their policy, Now, my problem is, or what I have a challenge with this whole thing is the fact that such hospital that we're talking about, the former senator must, or the relative must have gone through the do's and don'ts, the modus operandi of this hospital before going there. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That's number one. Number two, then why is it that in Nigeria we have to wait until the health has deteriorated to the point that it will be an emergency thing before we go to seek medical care? That's another line to look at this point in time, because I don't see the reason why we're getting the stories that before they could raise $30,000, they lost him. Okay, what happened to other hospitals? That hospital is not the only one there.
It could be specialist.
It is not a specialist hospital, but all the same,
It could be a special case anyway.
Exactly.
It could be a special case.
Exactly. But now, what happened to other hospitals around? What happened to But when I asked someone who also I know, and the person said, no, you don't blame this on the hospital. The hospital came up open to say we have a policy. This is how we run.
No. What I question is that kind of policy. Should it be considering that it's within this health sector?
I believe it must. Yeah, it should. Now the thing is this. He was a senator. Why is it that when he was there from 2011 to 2015, he did not think of making a law that would get them a specialist or a sound hospital somewhere in Niger State, categorized in Niger State? Now we treated all the things with laxity, and then you come back.
I'm not particular about I'm not particular about the location of the hospital.
Now,
why should a hospital have that kind of
policy? Hospital with such policy, such hospital with such the sophisticated equipment that they have and everything need a very strong policy for them to still be in business, or else they will run out. This is how it is.
Okay.
I have seen some other politicians go there, even childbirths and all that. We have some celebrities and every other person actually do good. I have seek health care sometimes with them, but
Fina,
no.
sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
It's not good that we're having this conversation, because this is the reason a lot of Nigerians die, and yet we blame those that have the means for going abroad for treatment. I mean, in the abroad, once when you are taken in, you are stabilized first. You're stabilized before they ask you to pay. They would have known your financial capacity, and he has quite the financial capacity. He may not have, excuse me, please. He may not have the money at hand at the time, but he's a person. Now, we're talking about this now because it happened to a former senator, but we know that there was also the case of a lady who was pregnant, taken to a hospital in the Lekki area, and they were asked to pay 500,000 naira. Now, because she didn't have, the husband didn't have that amount, that life was lost. All of this can be avoided.
That was the story we had. Did they tell us how many places they visited before the man took the wife to the... No, it should be.
That's not the point.
We need to explain all this the way it is. We need to
Can I land on
explain
my
the way it
thoughts,
is.
Now, it's not the point. It's not about how many places you visit. The fact is, if you're going to a hospital, you should be admitted, stabilized, all right, life saved, restored, before we start talking payment for... have you taken anybody to the hospital?
I have been there.
While you are in the ICU waiting to be attended, you're asked to pay for a card, you're asked to pay for everything, you're asked to pay for bed, before the doctor even sees you to determine what is wrong and what can be done. It is not good for our health system. Now, I understand that hospitals do this because they want to rake in as much funds as possible, because they believe that if they don't do this, people will not pay at the end of the day. But it speaks against the oath to save lives that they took. It's unfortunate that this is where we are in this country.
Some persons that own hospital in Nigeria are not even medical doctors. I hope we need to understand that too. They did not really take this post. They have medical doctors. Now,
we're not talking about the owners. We're not talking about the owners of the institutions. We're talking about the practitioners.
Do you know that there's a possibility that this particular man could not even see a medical doctor? They might just, maybe the only thing there is that they send him to do lab, and then at the end of the day, the hospital policy will say, until you get this done, that's going to be attended to.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Anyway, the All Progressives Congress has been called upon by the African Democratic Congress to dismantle all premature campaign posters promoting President Bola Tinubu's re-election bid, which have been spotted in various parts of the country. Lagos is one. The Airport Road and the Third Mainland Bridge, these are very particular areas where you would find those posters. Now, in a statement issued by the party, the appearance of such materials was described as insensitive and ill-timed, especially in light of the severe economic hardship currently being faced by Nigerians. The posters are being viewed by the ADC and some Nigerians as well as a deliberate distraction from the pressing governance issues that are yet to be addressed under the current administration. It was emphasized that the focus should be placed on delivering good governance rather than engaging in early political propaganda. Well, the action has been condemned as a misuse of political attention and public space, and the APC has been urged to immediately order the removal of all of such posters. Yes, we have a lot of those, in as much as it's not time for campaigns yet. We have, hope for 2020. There's even a hope 2027, re-elect Tinubu for, re-elect Tinubu 2027. You find that posters hanging on street lights in Lagos. So it's basically campaign time. And it's unfortunate that that's where we've gotten to. This administration, this APC government seems to be just interested in getting into power, staying in power, as against actual governance. And the relevant agencies, INEC isn't punishing anybody. INEC isn't issuing punishment yet. Why? I ask. But it's unfortunate. And other political parties have, jumped into the train as well. They've gotten into it. Everybody now wants to take advantage. Since the ruling party is doing it and they are not being reprimanded, let's also, put our faces in the, put our campaigns and projects in the faces of the people. It's all about campaigns. Then what happens after 2027? Are we going to start campaigning again for 20?
That's one.
Yeah. Oh, well.
The thing of it is this. I think there's an accusation and counter of it that is going on. The opposition is saying the president is too early, in the campaign trail. And the presidency and the APC are saying, you people started it. So there is this back and forth. And there was, I think something happened yesterday. There was this sociocultural group in the Southwest that gathered all the associations and whatever and endorsed the president for 2027, And they are saying that, look, why is it that others are campaigning and they don't want the president to campaign? Now, the big question is, presidency, APC, if you are saying that it was the opposition that started it, wouldn't it have been appropriate to rein them in and stop them rather than stepping into the fray? That is the big question that Nigerians are asking. So you now want us to believe that two rights now make a wrong. If you think that the opposition started it, the appropriate thing to have done was to stop them at that moment and not to start your own campaigns. Unfortunately, that is what it has become. Governance has taken a backseat. Politics campaign is in the spotlight and all of that.
I dare say that the Tinubu supporters are used to doing things like this. I mean, just before the 2023 election, somewhere around, right after COVID-19 in 2020, around 2021, there were already talks about Tinubu campaigning, jumping into the election trade in 2023. All right, and then we saw buses branded Tinubu for 2023. If you move around Oshodi area, Mafoluke area, those things were everywhere. And then people say, "Oh, the president, are you interested?" He said, "No, he's not interested. He hasn't said he wants to contest. He's not contested." But then these things were everywhere up until it was time, and then he came up to contest. So I think those that support the president, they are used to doing things like that, and it's because they haven't been reined in at any point in time. So they are just allowed.
When they were told to go, grab it, snatch it, run with it. So what do you expect them to do at this moment? That's exactly what they are doing.
But I think it's quite unfortunate. We have a window for campaign 150 days before the election day. So I think APC as a party should lead by example. If they say remove all posters and every other thing that more like looks like a campaign material, they should do it. They should take it out. And INEC also that happens to be the electoral umpire should not be giving us or telling us that we need to wait until when they use votes before we'll know that they're already campaigning. These are even there was a time that someone branded I think plantain chips and all that. That happens to be in co-ops, and these are ways to campaign to tell people that this person actually has interest in coming up for 2027. This is 2025 yet. It's not yet time for campaign, and that's what I can say.
All right, then now let's quickly run to the papers. Now let's look at headlines from the dailies. Let's touch on them, but don't forget at 10 o'clock we'll go deeper into these headlines. But newspaper headlines from the Guardian newspaper. Window headlines here: over 83 million Nigerians live on less than 3,100 naira daily. This is according to Oxfam. And then NLC, Serap, YRC, Falcho, arrest detention, demands release. Unruly behavior, NTAA blacklists Ayinde, petitions for criminal charges. Okay. Cancer, toxic braids. So there are toxic braids. Okay. Fina isn't carrying one. Yeah. Cancer, fertility risks. Trail Nigeria's $429 million synthetic hair obsession. There's a breakdown of it, and I hope we get a woman to join us in the Jerry Newspaper Review as we talk about this. And ADC knocks PDP over moves to woo Obi, claims party has lost influence. WAEC recalls results, directs candidates to check afresh. There was a glitch again. We'll talk about all of this. 2027. 151 new parties indicate interest. Submit forms, says INEC. 151. 300 repentant terrorists undergoing rehabilitation, says FG. Those are the headlines on the cover page of the Guardian newspaper.
The Nigerian Tribune is up next, and above the masthead airport saga. NACA petitions AGF, IGP to investigate and prosecute Kwam1. Right after that story, FG bans him from flying for 6 months. Aviation workers to down tool August 11 over salary dispute. The banner headline on the cover page of the Nigerian Tribune today reads, flooding, Lagos, Ogun, Delta, Kogi, 11 others at high risk. Right after that, 198 local government areas may be flooded. FG to disburse 300,000 naira to 21,000 farmers. Disburses 493 billion naira to 5 million households. Tinubu lifts ban on NSIPA's frozen account. Mounting deficit raised concern over bank takeover as Ikeja Electricity reports 25 billion naira pre-tax loss. Health. Only 1 in 3 babies exclusively breastfed in Nigeria. That's coming from UNICEF. And then we have other headlines to be 2027. Worries over APC congresses. Defecting governors had heat. Why Tinubu peaked yield WADA. 155 associations seeks INEC's recognition as parties. Continuous voter registration to begin August 18 in 811 centers. And those are the stories you'll find on the cover page of the Nigerian Tribune today.
Okay, let's quickly run through the Vanguard newspaper with the top strip headline. FX forward contract, CBN reviews legal actions against defaulters. And the window headlines, Nigeria may break up before 2027 if, that's coming from Modo. Telecoms blackout looms as base station operators, diesel suppliers battle. 2027, North not swayed by one-term pledge, ACF. Now the big story, heavy floods to hit 198 local governments in 31 states. Federal government warns with the riders, more than 832 communities at risk. Over 100 major transportation routes face possible disruptions. Lagos government molds humanitarian intervention in affected communities. Rose Vival slams government over victims' eviction order. Now, most stories, another major headline there. ValueJet airline drama. Federal government slams 6 months no-fly ban on K1. WAEC apologizes over technical glitches in WASSCE 2025 results. Vanguard's health outreach revives hope for newspaper vendors. I was removed as governor for refusing to make Oba my deputy. That's coming from former Minister of Labour, former governor of Anambra State, Chris Chibuzo Ongige. And in the world of sports, Super Falcons maintain position on FIFA World Ranking, remain number 1 in Africa. And that's it on newspaper headlines. Like Moses said, we'll return at 10 o'clock for extended review of newspaper headlines, outside and inside. Now, let's go for a short break. And when we return, we'll get into the major topic of discussion. First, Goodluck Jonathan to run in 2027 presidential race, says close associate. Join us again.
Extraordinary. Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice. Good morning. It's the start of a beautiful day. We'll start your day right with a healthy dose of news, fun, and inspiration. Join us on VOP this morning for the latest news, trending topics, and uplifting stories to set your day on the right vibe. From news and current events to lifestyle and entertainment, you are covered. VOP this morning, 8 a.m., Monday through Friday.
All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. And if you are just joining us, now this is VOP This Morning on Voice of People Television. Former President Goodluck Jonathan is reportedly preparing to contest the 2027 presidential election. Well, according to a close associate who confirmed the development during a recent media interaction. The associate, who chose to remain anonymous, revealed that consultations have been ongoing within Jonathan's inner political circle, and that some strong pressure from various stakeholders across the country, particularly from the South and parts of the North, has influenced his decision. Well, it was disclosed that Jonathan has been quietly rebuilding political bridges, engaging with influential figures, and strengthening grassroots support in anticipation of a formal declaration. His potential comeback is being described as a strategic move aimed at restoring national unity and economic stability, which his allies argue were hallmarks of his previous administration. The revelation has already sparked intense political debate nationwide, with mixed reaction from both supporters and critics. While some view his return as a welcome development and an opportunity to bring experience and calm leadership back to Aso Rock, others argue that the move could further polarize the political landscape. Well, analysts have noted that if Jonathan formally declares his candidacy, it may significantly alter existing power calculations ahead of 2027, particularly within the ruling All Progressives Congress, where he is rumored to be considering a possible defection or endorsement deal. As speculations mount, Jonathan himself has yet to make a public statement, but sources insist that a formal announcement could be made in the coming days. We are joined virtually by Professor Pat Utomi. Professor Pat Utomi is a professor of political economy and a management expert. He is also the founder of the Center for Value in Leadership. That's the professional part of Utomi that we know. And the political side of it, he was a presidential candidate of the current bride of the opposition in Nigeria, talking about the African Democratic Congress. He was also Goba candidate of the APC, fractional Goba candidate anyway, of the APC in 2019 Goba elections in Delta State. Good morning, Professor Pat Utomi, and thanks for joining us on VOP this morning. Good to have you, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to join.
All right, sir. Good to have you, sir. And from our Benin station, we are joined by Comrade Roy Oriabo. He's a public affairs analyst there. Good morning to you, Comrade Roy Oriabo, and thanks for being part of the show. We appreciate your presence.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, then. Now, Prof, let me start with you. What do you make of the fact that President Goodluck Jonathan is trying to make way back into office after his stint? Served out Yar'Adua's first term, contested, got a full term, recontested and lost elections. And there's been this pull and push, people trying to bring him back to the political fray. And he's been saying, look, I'm not part of it. But this moment, a close ally of him has confirmed that he's up. He wants to step into the fray again for 2027. Can we have your broad reaction about how you feel about all of this, and how you think that is going to alter the political equation, the political calculations, talking about fielding two Southern candidates, the current president, a former president, and a former vice president from the North. Prof, can you walk us through what you think about all of this?
I try very hard to stay away from speculation that is wild. Until Goodluck Jonathan says that he is a candidate, I don't think it is worth my while speculating. All I can say is that my experience with Nigeria is that many people who could have gone on to, whatever it is, history's great charm, often ruin it by allowing people with ulterior motives to drag them into something. But let's watch and let's see.
Okay, Prof. I like your position, speculation. Okay, now let's fast forward. Let's create a what-if scenario. Let us assume that Jonathan himself has declared. What would be the likely chances of his coming back to office, considering, like I said before, we have a president, we have a sitting president from the South, from the Southwest. And he is assuming, let's take it for granted that he has stepped in. He is from the South. And you have a Peter Obi, likely from the South. So you have three Southern candidates. And you have probably one from the North, in the person of Atiku Abubakar. How is that going to pan out?
That depends on all kinds of variables. What party is Jonathan going to run from? APC, PDP, whatever else. It depends on but like a number of variables, and that's why speculation is not so healthy at this point in time. If he chooses to run from the APC, that's wonderful. Let's see him sort things out with Bola Tinubu. If he wants to butt his way into ADC and then goes toe to toe against whoever may be the people who show up in ADC, whether they be Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, or anybody, then let's see how the electoral process works. Bottom line is that we've not had elections in Nigeria, unfortunately, since 1999. I can tell you on authority that every election has been flawed, every single one. So really, 2027 was going to be an opportunity for the Nigerian people to get a test for whether democracy is for them or not. If 2027 turns out to be as farcical as some of the ones before it, then you can wave bye-bye to democracy in Nigeria.
All right, then. Prof, I like your position. I like your position. And, well, let's progress. I encourage you to stay with us. We'll come back to you in the course of this conversation. Thanks very much for your very wonderful and incisive take. Now, let's go to Bini, where we have Comrade Roy Oriabo standing by. Good morning to you once again, Comrade Roy. Now, Comrade Roy, is there a possibility that a Goodluck Jonathan could find his way to APC to contest the presidential election? Is the possibility it could happen? What do you see? What do you think? Okay, I would like for you to unmute your mic so that we can get your audio feed. Hello, Comrade Roy, can you hear me? Comrade Roy, I need for you to unmute your mic so that we can get your audio feed. Okay, while he's doing that, we've been joined in the studio here by Mr. Dele Fanimo. Now, Dele is a reporter and a VOP in-house analyst. Good morning, Dele, and good to have you on the show.
Good to have you join today's conversation.
Thank God you're back on your feet. Okay. All right. Now, Jonathan is speculated to be stepping into the presidential race. And Professor Patu Tommy just said that, look, if he decides to, on which platform is he going to run? Is it in the PDP? Is it in the APC? Or is it in the ADC? And I'm thinking, what gives Prof the impression, maybe I'll ask him later, that Tinubu might, Jonathan might find his way to APC to go and rough it out with the sitting president. Is there a possibility it could happen? What do you see in all of this? On which platform do you think that is likely to take a chance?
I think the most plausible platform for him to run now is PDP. Because PDP is headless now. They are talking to Peter Obi, and in case Peter Obi decides to ignore them or snub them, they might likely look for somebody like the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. But from all indications, it beats me hollow that less than 10 years after Jonathan was chased out of Aso Rock, is now becoming a beautiful bride to the same people that said it was clueless, it was this, it was that, and suddenly it's now a beautiful bride. But another thing that may look impossible, which may be possible, you recall that the build-up to 2007 election that brought in Yaradua, Obasanjo went to the Niger Delta campaigning on behalf of Yaradua, and the stakeholders in Niger Delta accosted him and said, look, we said we wanted the presidency, and you know that 98% of our revenue in this country comes from our soil. Don't you think we deserve some leverage as a result of our producing almost 95 to 98% of the resources of this country by giving us the presidential ticket? And Obasanjo replied them. He said, yes, you asked for president, I gave you the slot of the vice president. And that means I've met you halfway. But what would know I don't know. But what I know, you don't know. That was the last statement he made. And obviously, the results, like they say, is history. President Goodluck Jonathan later became the president of Nigeria. So, if Jonathan is coming on the ticket of APC, perhaps what we don't know, maybe some people in the corridors of power know. And if he's accommodated in APC, well, we need to just cross our fingers and wait for the outcome.
Okay. Let me go back to Professor Patutomi. Professor, are you still with us?
Yes, I am still with
Okay.
you.
Now, in as much as I understand your position.
I think, I don't know if you permit me.
Please.
I need to greet my former boss.
Okay, you will later.
Okay.
Professor, I understand your position. You don't want to dwell on speculations, but we know that in the political space, some of these things filter in. People pander these stories, and at the end of the day, we see that these things are true. I mean, just before the 2023 election, President Tinubu at the time, there were speculations that he may want to contest, he may not want to contest. And then we saw some campaign vehicles, branded vehicles. He, came out and dissociated himself from that. That no, he didn't ask anybody to do that on his behalf. He hasn't made his intentions clear. But much later, when time for the primaries started, we saw how he, jumped into it, and he is where he is today as the president of Nigeria. But let's dwell on what if, like Chukuma rightly stated. What the part of the Constitution that makes it difficult for an individual to be sworn in more than 2 times, do you think that will be a clog in the wheel that maybe these people that are trying to woo former President Goodluck Jonathan into the PDP are not looking at? Because we hear that he's already building bridges, having meetings with the likes of General Ibrahim Babangida. They're having meetings already. And but what if he comes and takes the ticket? And we also hear that he has agreed on one condition, that he would not be part of the primaries. That's the conversation that we are hearing, and that's what Nigerians are working with at the time. So what if that clause that says you cannot be sworn in more than 2 times, will that be a clog in the wheel?
In Nigeria, people have become quite cynical about anything that is to be defined by the judiciary. After all, somebody who came forth in the elections in Imo State is now the governor. All kinds of things are possible in Nigeria with the judiciary that we have. Fairly sadly, particularly sad, because I recently saw a ranking of judiciaries in Africa. Nigeria was not in the top 10. And one country that Nigeria used to supply judges and their chief justice, or chief judge, whichever the usage was back then, was a Nigerian. Justice Akinola Aguda was chief judge or chief justice of Botswana. Today, Botswana is considered one of the top 10 judiciaries in Africa, and Nigeria is not rated. I think that if Nigerian judiciary begins to reflect on these things, it may cause a sense of shame that might lead to a different kind of thinking. But right now, nobody really worries about what is in the Constitution or not if the judiciary continues to do what it does. If 4 can become 1, anything is possible. So it's a matter of watching and seeing.
All right.
We will watch and we will see.
Interesting one there.
But let me just say, by the way, that I think Goodluck Jonathan is a smart enough person to recognize that he's being set up. Being set up on the part of some people who have an entitlement mindset up north of our country, but it's not because of the north, it's because of their personal ambitions and egos, or a general sense that, wait a minute, we are leadership in Nigeria will determine it. That is going to be a terrible thing if Nigeria is going to continue to exist. And some of those people are saying the only way to ensure that this thing will come to us, that nobody plays any games, is to take somebody who cannot be sworn in again. But there are those who will argue that Jonathan has been sworn in twice before, and so they can go to the courts to sort that out. I'm saying that I think Goodluck Jonathan is much smarter than that. At some point, he'll realize he's a pawn being used by some people, and he will probably act a little more intelligently than they think he will act. They think he's dumb, but he's probably not as dumb as they think.
Okay, Professor. Now, earlier when you were talking, you said something about Nigeria not being able to organize a proper election since 1999, and that is when democracy came back to us. At what point did you notice all this? Because, you've been there within the political space. In 2007, you were a governorship candidate under the African Democratic Party, and, up until 2019 also, you also happen to be a presidential candidate. Now, what point do you notice that Nigeria as a nation does not really, have election or proper elections?
I have noticed this from the very beginning. It's just that people tell you from time to time, why don't you, try and see if your action will make a difference? Let me go back to 1999. In fact, this conversation actually came back into my consciousness when I was interviewed in Washington just a few weeks ago by a gentleman who used to work for NDI. He now runs a blog. He, before the interview started, he recalled being responsible at NDI for a program in Washington in, I think, 2000 or thereabouts, that I came to with Raymond Dokbesi, I think Hamis Bishira from the National Assembly back then, and so on and so forth. And these elections, then we talked about the elections in Nigeria from his vantage position, working for NDI for many years, looking at election monitoring in Nigeria. And I told him the conversation I had with President Carter after the elections of 1999. At that time, there was something called the Nigerian American Economic Institute. Aliko Dangote was chairman. I was vice chairman or vice president or whatever of this Nigerian American Economic Institute. And the night of the elections, we had set up to host President Carter, Colin Powell, and co dinner at the Hilton in Abuja. So as they were arriving, I said to President Carter, Mr. President, what do you think? I'd had the privilege of meeting him a couple of times before, incidentally in the company of President Obasanjo, who was a candidate in that election. So I said, President Carter, what do you think of the elections? Carter opened his mouth. He couldn't say anything. He couldn't shut it. So Princeton Lyman, who used to be Nigerian ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, who was a good friend of mine when he was ambassador here in the 80s, President Princeton Lyman pulled me aside and said, Pat, if these soldiers wanted to make a mess of the election, they tried very hard. I said, how? He said they saw soldiers carrying ballot boxes. They saw all kinds of things. But that the one that got to President Carter was that as they drove into Nasarawa State observing elections, they came to one station at about noon, and nobody had voted. Nobody had showed up to vote. And they asked the people there, what do you think is the problem? The people, did they all travel or something? The people said, we don't know, nobody has come. So they drove further into Nasarawa State, came back about an hour and a half later on their way back to Abuja, stopped at the same station. Mr. Carter said, let's see what has happened. And it turned out every single person registered to vote had voted. And President Carter was in such shock, he never recovered. In fact, they eventually put out one statement that President Carter thought that it maybe reflected somehow the will of the Nigerian people, even though it was not perfect. This gentleman who was telling me said, look, President Carter was airborne when they issued that statement on his behalf. He was so disgusted, he never came back to Nigeria again. Oh. Well, we went to the next election. He and I analyzed every election like that. 2007, which I participated. We had lunch. By the way, Atiku Abubakar and Muhammadu Buhari were my three allies from the loss of 2007. And the former American Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, was one of the observer mission leaders. And I had lunch with her, and she said to me, she and the former Canadian Prime Minister Martin, she said to me, do you guys call this thing an election? I said, yes, that's what we call election in Nigeria. And then my interviewer reminded me that she never came back to Nigeria again until she died. You know, so we have this history of the world feeling Nigerian elections are a joke.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Prof, thank you very much for taking us, down memory lane there. But talking about our elections and voter apathy that we've seen over the years, we saw in 2023, Nigerians came out, casted their votes. Unfortunately, some would say the electorates did not exactly determine who governs them, because it all ended up in the courts. And you talked about the perception of the courts now. Now, what, from your analysis of previous, from your experience of previous elections, what do you think will happen in 2027? Do you think there will be interest in voting, or do you think the people will go back to their shows? Because what the feelers we are getting is that people are beginning to say, oh, well, they know who will be there, so there is no point going out to vote. What impact do you think that will have on the electorate, that mindset on the electorate come 2027?
Important thing in Nigeria today, it's not the election of 2027, it's reform of the electoral process. If Nigerians are not convinced by the end of 2026 that things have changed in the way elections take place in Nigeria, they will not come out to vote. And if they don't come out to vote, that is the end of Nigeria as a country. I assure you that.
All right, Professor. Now, I said I'm going to ask you one very question anytime I get opportunity to see you, and here is the opportunity. And the reason is this: being someone who is revered and who has also been within the political space in Nigeria, you made a huge sacrifice in 2022. That is with the Labour Party by handing over your own position now, or rather, to Peter Gregory Obi at this point in time. I want to get your opinion on, do you really have any regret over that particular move? Because here you're talking about persons who have their own, who are becoming a bit egocentric and who think that the power revolves around them. Did you in any way regret making that single sacrifice, for the people of Nigeria in 2022 for the 2022 general election?
And check my history. At every critical point, I have chosen to make the sacrifice for the good of Nigeria. Every time. Some people think I'm crazy, actually. There's a fellow who's worked closely with me called Wale Okuni. Wale Okuni said to me, what's the matter with you? We're trying to get you to be president. We're trying to say what is good for Nigeria. This is not how Nigerians think. I said to Wale, if it's good for Nigeria, it doesn't matter how it is for me, it will be good for me. Look, the 2023 elections was what it was because a group of people agreed with me that between the so-called two dominant parties, most of which I was on the table when they were founded, by the way. And once they were founded, I saw that I didn't have the same goal as those who took power, which is Nigeria. I withdrew quietly. At different points, people pushed me, no, if you don't do this, you will be compounding the matter. I bowed to their pressures and participated in one form or the other. And again, the very worst came out. Look, maybe I have this privilege that I got there very early. At 27, I was in a presidential advisory position. There is nothing more dangerous in this world than a 26-year-old PhD who believes the world can be changed. And that's what I was when I came. And every move I made, the permanent secretary told me, no, you step on this feet. So when the coup took place in 83, I actually felt relief because I said I won't go into public office again unless there's a critical mass that will change Nigeria for the good of all inside that cabinet. Now, some of you may have heard the story of my great debate with President Yaradua, who I think would have made a great president for Nigeria had he lived. Because President Yaradua invited me and tried to persuade me to join his cabinet. I reminded him that in 1983, I made the decision that unless that cabinet had enough of a critical mass to really focus on where Nigeria should be going and not the pockets of the people who think that they've garnered power, that I would not accept any position in government. 2 hours, President Yaradua tried to persuade me that I will do more inside government. And I said, no, I formed a shadow team. We will work as opposition to make sure that we keep your government in check. In the end, he said to me, you're looking for critical mass. Okay, why don't you nominate 7 people and bring them in with you to the cabinet, and you have my full assurance of support to change Nigeria. Unfortunately, he didn't live long to implement that request he made of me. But really, truly, all of these things, unless people put Nigeria before their personal ambitions, we are in serious trouble. I can tell you that.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for taking us down memory lane. I wanted to ask you a question, but you have already answered it. I wanted to ask why, you left government in 1983, and since then, professor of political economy, highly valued internationally, and I understand that you consult for government, foreign governments and all of that. I was finding it difficult to understand why you haven't, received a spot in governance and all of that. I spoke with you sometime in 2013, and I asked you a question. So I want to repeat that question and to see how much, your position has changed on that. Prof, when you ran for presidency under the platform of the ADC, at that point, in all honesty, Prof, did you want to win the election, or you just wanted to, improve your CV, former presidential candidate, and all of that?
It's such a very important question, because if you recall what I said about not returning to government, I played a role, I think most people will consider pivotal, in organizing the opposition against the annulment of the elections of June 12th. And we founded the concerned professionals out of it. I got beaten on the streets of Lagos demonstrating as a CEO of a multinational company. Even the late Alex Ibru said to me, that's not normal. What are you doing? You still work for Volkswagen? I say, yes. And you are leading demonstration against the government? I say, because this is wrong. It's a matter of our conscience. And after those struggles, in 1998, the army decides, okay, it's had enough, it's going. Let's return to civil rule. My group, the concerned professionals, we met in my office. I had an office in Victoria Island here in Lagos on Idowu Taylor. That meeting had people like Donald Duke, of course, Tola Moboluri, who was managing director of Capital Bancorp, and the late Waziri Mohammed, and so on and so forth. As a group, some wanted us to go into politics, to change Nigeria the way we had been pleading should go. Some said, look, we're professionals. We came into this as citizens. If we say we are entering politics now, people will think we did it because we were looking for power. I backed the group that said, let's not go into politics. Even though I was so close to people like Dr. Alex Ekweme, who were leading the formation of the PDP. So collectively, I agreed we should not go into politics. Because of my personal loyalties to Dr. Alex Ekweme, I followed him to the meeting that founded the PDP, even though I never became a member of the PDP. But I was there when it was founded, literally, as an Ekweme, if you will, aide or back office person. Then, when the passenger period from 99 didn't go exactly as we thought it should go, I mean, even President Obasanjo and I have had our many backs and forths on this matter, because I actually, in the end, was the leader of the policy team that prepared Obasanjo's policy positions in 1998-99. When eventually we became unhappy with the way things were going, my old friends, concerned professors, said, no, we must get back. We made a mistake. But Donald Duke warned me in front of my office that day in 1998. He said, okay, you guys don't want to go. I will go and organize Cross River and take it over, which he did successfully. So I then began to change my position to say, look, How can we bring this brain power, this global network together to go and help people like Donald Duke run their state so well that people will see the benefit in a well-run government? We're in the middle of that debate when some people said, look, let's go into politics. That's what led to our meeting up with Okenwosu and the ADC rolling out in 2007 with me as presidential candidate. Our main goal in 2007 was to reconstruct the politics, to focus on issues. I did not necessarily think that given power structure that I was going to win that election, but it was so bizarre because I think President Obasanjo tried so hard to stop Atiku from being elected that 2007 was not an election. It was a complete mess. And if I might just close this comment with my experience in Gombe during that election, we're campaigning, got to Gombe, we're just going through the motions, and the emir of Gombe, who were making a courtesy call on, said, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you won't win this election, no, but make me a promise. If you don't win this election, promise me you will continue to run. I was shocked, and I said, why? And he said, until someone like you or someone like you becomes president, Nigeria will make progress. I said, why? He began to describe how Nigeria was run. And I found out later that he was a retired federal permanent secretary.
All right then, Prof. Let's fast forward from 2007 to 2015. I understand that you are part of the people that formed the APC, because at some point in 2019, you were a factional governor candidate of the APC in Delta State. Prof, why did you jump ship?
You have to ask me how the APC was founded. First and foremost, look, Goodluck Jonathan, I put my life on the line for Goodluck Jonathan to become president of Nigeria when the Yaradua guys were playing games. I know the role I played. Goodluck Jonathan will tell you, I used to fly into Abuja and meet with him once every week at my own cost, develop strategy, all kinds of things. Myself, Amagbe Kentebe, the late Tony Uranta, we formed a core group that took on the battle that made Jonathan president. Again, that's the crisis with Nigeria. The day that Andoaka obtained that funny court judgment that Jonathan can do the job of Yaradua without being called acting president, I was having dinner with Goodluck Jonathan and Colonel Edo Obi, and I said to him, you got to do this, you got to move that, forget about all these strategy things. The moment he was announced president, Goodluck Jonathan was, I know you guys have been spending your money doing this, doing that. Don't worry. Now that, what's her name? Alison Madueke is in petroleum. Anything you guys want, you can get. I found that an insult. And that was the last time I ever talked to Goodluck Jonathan in that context. I just walked away because that fight was not about who has access to the Minister of Petroleum, who can get anything. It's about how do you rebuild Nigeria. So constantly this has come up when you think you are near a new way and you find that the mindset of those involved completely different. Then I decided, look, Goodluck Jonathan doesn't have the mindset to lead a country like this to where it should be going. And so when people started talking about replacing him, and we began to put things together that became the APC, that was what drove my thinking. But you know what? The very day, literally the very day Buhari was said to have won the election, even all the things discussed with Buhari just dropped out of the window because some people somewhere against Buhari's judgment or whatever announced that a new chief of staff had been appointed, is Abba Kyari, to Buhari's own shock. And Buhari accepted it because, okay, let things be. And that was the end of the Buhari presidency. So when in 2018 or whatever it was, people from Delta began to, just literally crowd into my office, where I'm sitting right now as I talk to you. I'm pleading that the only way to rescue Delta was if someone like me got involved.
Okay.
Look, this is not hidden. I wrote a book on it. It's titled "Why Not." If you read the book, you'll get all the details of how that happened.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Prof. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, so again, against my own better judgment, I said I was done with this business. I'm not going. But they pleaded so much, I thought, okay, will God judge me if I didn't do something in the way these people are saying to save people of Delta? That's how I got involved in that whole thing. I had completely moved away from it all.
All right, now that you said you moved away from it all, Professor Path Otobi, you made a promise to someone in Gombe State saying that you will keep on doing your bit. Even here, you also said that you keep on doing your bit to make sure that Nigeria, will back on its feet again. And some people also are crediting a particular statement to you again, saying that he said you no longer seek any office, neither will you accept any public, offer in Nigeria. Isn't that more like going back on the promise you've made? And if that actually should be the case, then where there lies your hope and then your faith that you want Nigeria to be better again?
Perspective for you. In American politics, there's something called the Sherman Declaration. The Sherman Declaration comes from the fact that many, maybe a century or so ago, a fellow called Sherman, people were saying they were going to draft him, they were going to do this, and he made a statement. He said, if drafted, I will not accept. If put on the ballot and voted for, I will not show up for swearing in. If doing, I will not, to show that he was not interested. I started wanting to make a Sherman Declaration in Nigeria more than 30 years ago. Because there are people in Nigeria who think that the only reason people are interested in public life is self-aggrandizement. And I wanted it to be very clear that I'm looking for nothing for myself. I've tried to show it repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. But there are Nigerians who don't have any capacity to discuss issues. So whenever you make a point about something, they say, he wants to be made a consultant. He wants to be given, I've walked away from, please come and do this. In fact, many people shy away from asking me because they say you will not accept. I say, it's not about public office. I don't need to be. The first day Peter Obi and I had a conversation, I said to him, Peter, I do not want anything from your government. I just think that in the mix that is here, you have the kind of discipline I think that can make Nigeria move forward. So I do not want anything from your government. Even though we built the platform that he ran on, even though it cost me personally a lot of money, as Wale Okuniyi will tell anybody, even though it took a lot of my goodwill to build labor unions, Ayuba Waba and Co., into what became the platform that P2B ran on. P2B has never given me 10 naira, not even refund me the money I spent, even to apply.
Oh, well, he doesn't give shishi.
That's the point I'm trying to make him by saying,
okay.
I don't care. I'm ready to keep advising anybody who is president of Nigeria privately, but I don't want any position. I don't need.
All right, Prof. Now, interesting. You've taken us in a direction. Before I ask my question, though, there's someone in the studio who wants to say hello to you. I think he's an old friend of yours. So we'll give him the platform to say hello. His name is Dele Fanimo.
Hi, Dele.
Good morning, Prof.
How you doing today?
Very well, and you?
We continue to bless God every day.
How is the family, Prof?
Family is doing well.
All right,
Yes,
yeah,
well done.
All right.
It just shocked me now that you are trying to run away from what I told you then, that you should stay behind and fight.
I've been out of Nigeria for 2 years.
I know.
You don't realize this because I come and go and all of that.
Yeah.
The request for me to take up positions outside of Nigeria is so much that if I wake up and say, look, I'm done, and just jump into an aeroplane, I'll find some comfortable existence somewhere.
I know.
I have an obligation here.
But you don't have any other country apart from Nigeria.
Yeah, of course, my heart is here.
Interesting, Prof. Yes.
I just take this small point,
Yes.
I was invited frequently around the U.S. during the last 2 years when I was been living there.
Yeah.
To speak to Nigerian groups.
All right, Prof. Now,
giving up on Nigeria, and I said you can't.
Sorry to butt in at this point, Prof. Interesting. People like you have, what it takes to formulate policies that can move this nation forward. But you just said it here that you have tried to, advise people before they get into office. People like Jonathan and the rest of them, but then they get into office, they throw away those policies. What is the role, or how can we mitigate the role of the cabal in our governance system? Because the cabal seems to take over power when people get into office.
What I've been telling my friends in the ADC and this current movement, I say if it is to find one candidate that becomes the new know-it-all, then this is a waste of time. We must go back to collective responsibility. If Peter Obi takes the nomination of the ADC, he is not going to govern as Peter Obi, who knows everything. He must be part of a leadership elite. Look, when I was a young man in government, President Shagari didn't wake up and say, I want this. He had Chief Akinloye, chairman of MPN, in one corner. He had Vice President like Sekweme and all these kind of people sitting together and decided, this is what we do, this is what we do. We've had too much of this, take this thing to Buhari and he'll sign. And a guy like Abba Kyari, who hated Buhari and said, if this man wins the election, I will leave Nigeria. That man had the control of that process. Why do you think Nigeria became a complete mess under Buhari? So it won't happen again if I have anything to do with it. And I say to the ADC people, my base party, whatever we do, whoever emerges as candidate of ADC will not be a one great guy president. He's going to have collective responsibility. Even though I will hold no office, even though I will, none of those, I have to tell him this is what I think before he takes a major decision. Me and 20 other people. So that Nigeria's best interest will be what governs it.
Okay, interesting position. Well, aside from that, are there measures, are there mechanisms you intend to put in place to ensure that the policies that you come up with will be abided by and not thrown out the window like it's been done in times past?
Because very heavy mobilization of public opinion. This is why we are forming things like shadow cabinet. Okay. And people who are saying all kinds of things about that should remember that this goes back to Yaradua's time. And on the face-to-face, I told Yaradua that in 2008. So I don't know where they got this fancy idea that shadow cabinet is a new thing.
I was going to ask you about the shadow cabinet and how it's going. Some have said it's a threat to our constitution. How is that faring? And then the names that you listed as part of that as well.
This is an initiative I started in 2008. And I discussed it with President Yaradua. I told him this is why I wouldn't join your government. And he tried to persuade me that I can do more from inside than from outside. I said to him, you can call me at 2 a.m. and ask my opinion on any matter. And the shadow team will publish their opinion also. He said, no. If you were inside, you would do 10 times more. I said, look, in Africa, there is something that is called the cooperative state in post-colonial Africa. They bring you in because you think you have a strong voice. And then they squash your voice. And things go in a different direction. I said, I don't want to be that statistic. And he said, I want to assure you, bring 7 people, come with them, and you have my massive assurance of support to get the things that will move Nigeria forward to happen. So that has to continue. We have descended. Look, remember Socrates said, because Socrates was always afraid of democracy. And he said, look, democracy will lead, and I'm sorry to say this part of it because this is sexist. He says, democracy will lead to women wanting a voice on the table, and it will be given to them. Democracy will lead to, ultimately, I'll skip the other, to criminals and fraudsters wanting a place in governance, and democracy will give it to them. When that happens, of course, it becomes a kakistocracy, dominated by the worst amongst us. And that's where Nigeria is threatening to go. And so we must reconstruct democracy and have a bit of the philosopher king mindset that Plato would offer as the way to be governed. But even that philosopher king must govern in concert with others. And this is the idea that a shadow cabinet will push to ensure that we have. So anybody saying it's not in the British, it's in the British way, it's not in the American way, it's suggesting that only the British and the Americans have ways. Of course, all of us can come up with our own different ways. Even the shadow cabinet in England is a new creation of the 20th century. It did not even become a part of the governance system until after World War II. So where did they get this funny idea that Americans want this way? So why do South Africans have question time for the president?
Okay.
Is it a parliamentary system?
All right, Prof. Prof, I would like for us to talk about the state of the nation's economy. Now, I watched your interview in one other TV station, and you were of the opinion that way back in 1983, that Nigerians were not paying taxes. So at that point, they couldn't hold the government to account. Fast forward to this present, when Nigerians are complaining that they are overtaxed. So I'd like for us to balance all of that: taxation, revenue generation, and borrowing. This country, at this moment, at last count, our total debt exposure is in excess of 200 trillion naira. Prof, what should be the proper mix of taxation, revenue generation, and borrowing to balance out and take Nigeria out of this economic downturn? Are you able to give us some form of prescription about what we should do within that mix? Taxation, revenue generation, and borrowing. Within that mix, what should we do?
Yes. Thank you for bringing this up, because I remind people that the way that I got known in Nigeria was this subject. I'd just come back from the US in '82, and we used to be small boys running around Vincent Maduka's home in Ibadan when he was in WNTV. And he sees me and says, "Patrick." I said, "Sir." He says, they say you are clever. I say, "Don't mind them. They're carrying rumors. Come and see me in the office tomorrow." I say, "Yes, sir." I show up in his office, and he says, "Put him on television." And the first issue that came up was this subject. Look, taxation without representation is what drove the way the American democracy has evolved. So the representation means that you then ask, how is my money being used? And you use it to hold those who are using the money accountable. Now, we've gone from a situation of Nigerians not paying taxes back then to a situation where Nigerians are being overtaxed because a group of people in Washington, in the so-called Bretton Woods institutions, are not thinking. Yesterday, I was at Osita Obu's book thing in Lagos here, and Osita was making exactly the same points that I have made for years. Look, the people in Washington are not smarter than those of us who went to school with them, and we know our conditions better than they know our condition. For example, they develop smart, very useful things like tax to GDP ratios. That's fine. But how much tax does a Nigerian middle class person pay compared to how much tax an American middle person pays? You got to look at the fact that there's a social safety net that's catching his poorest relatives and taking care of them in some manner. It doesn't exist in Nigeria. So the average Nigerian middle class person is carrying 6 or 7 people in his extended family, already more tax than the American who's paying tax. And then the person in Washington tells you tax to GDP ratio. He's talking nonsense because he doesn't understand the nature of this culture and this society that has also already been reflected in the tax system. Then when he finishes paying that, revenue. Okay, fine. It is true we need revenues to deploy, to provide services for the people. So you collect these revenues, what are you doing with them? They still have no roads to drive on. They still have none of these. And they hear that the government is spending so much buying SUVs for people because they're called commissioners.
Okay.
With spending, those kinds of crazy use of resources. And then you don't think of the fiscal consequences.
Prof,
right now, for example, look at importation of essentials into Nigeria. For revenue purposes, they slap all these taxes on containers.
Okay.
Just go a few months down to see the consequence. Anyway, sorry.
Yes, Prof. You've raised quite talking points, a lot of talking points, but unfortunately we have a limited time that we're working with, and we can't get into all those talking points. But let's get your thoughts on this one before we let you go. Now, a total of 30, according to data, a total of 30 Nigerian states reportedly spent a combined 11.75 billion naira on foreign trips in the first quarter of 2025. Yet, they have failed to attract any measurable foreign direct investment. during the same period. Now, the expenditure which was captured in recent fiscal reports covered costs related to international conferences, investment summits, official visits by governors and other top state officials. While these trips were initially justified as efforts to woo foreign investors and promote state-specific opportunities, no tangible economic returns have been recorded as a result of the extensive travel. In fact, yesterday, the news broke that some investors were selling their company stocks to the tune of about over $500 billion. About that, yes. Over $500 billion in Nigeria. We're selling it off. So basically, investors are leaving. What's your thought on this?
I have no thought but to validate the point you've made. It is so true. Now, there are two problems, maybe more. First is people who get into public office in Nigeria, many of them should never have been allowed to enter public life. Because, first of all, they don't even understand the consequence of their behavior. Their first thought is, Ilabe has come. I have arrived. I am now, in fact, you see it in their relatives and their friends who write them congratulatory messages that they've been appointed, this, appointed that. So they're looking for the good life. And so anything that gives them the opportunity to travel, enjoy public money, and all of that, those things are seen as the, perks of the position. Now, they are not wicked people. They just don't know enough to understand the consequence of that drain of resources from Nigeria.
All right, then. All right,
and
then.
Just,
okay.
Showmanship takes over, but most of them don't even know the consequence. This is why you need checks and balances in government. This is why the agents of the citizen should go and say, no, you cannot do this. But when the state assembly or the national assembly is the biggest waste of public resources, how can they get up and say to the executive branch, you can't buy another presidential jet? No, this is not right. You know how many people you can feed? Look, latest statistics I saw says 9 Nigerians die every hour from malaria. You know how terrible that statement is? Because what it takes to save a person from death from malaria is $10. $10. That's all. And 9 every hour. That means just for $90, we can save these 9 people from dying. And they are dying. And people in the assemblies of the state and the federal government are busy planning trips to spend several times that amount of money.
All right. Quite
we need to put all of them to school and educate them.
Indeed. That's why we have people like you, Prof. Well, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate your time on the program, Professor Pat Utomi, Professor of Political Economy and Management. Thank you very much for being with us on VOP Television.
Extraordinary. Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
Good morning. It's the start of a beautiful day. Well, start your day right with a healthy dose of news, fun, and inspiration. Join us on VOP this morning for the latest news, trending topics, and uplifting stories to set your day on the right vibe. From news and current events to lifestyle and entertainment, you are covered.
VOP This Morning, 8 a.m., Monday through Friday. Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
This morning. More than 300 individuals formerly associated with terrorist groups are currently undergoing rehabilitations at a government-run facility in Gombe State, according to a statement released by the Tinubu administration. The initiative is part of the federal government's counter-insurgency and reintegration strategy aimed at de-radicalizing and reintegrating so-called repentant terrorists back into society. It was disclosed that the program is being carried out under the supervision of various security, intelligence, and humanitarian agencies with the goal of promoting national reconciliation and long-term peace in conflict-affected regions. The individuals, many of whom reportedly surrendered voluntarily, are being subjected to psychological evaluation, vocational training, and civic reorientation as part of the multi-phase program. The announcement has, however, stirred mixed reactions across the country, with some Nigerians expressing concern over the transparency, effectiveness, and moral implications of the rehabilitation process. Critics argued that prioritizing the welfare of former insurgents while victims of terrorism remain displaced, traumatized, and largely neglected send the wrong message about justice and accountability. Others have raised questions about the criteria used to assess the sincerity of the so-called repentant terrorists, warning that the approach may pose further security risks if not properly managed. Nevertheless, the government has maintained that the program is a necessary component of its broader peace-building effort, especially in the Northeast, where communities continue to recover from years of insurgency. We still have with us in the studio Dele Fanny Moses, and reporter and VOP in-house analyst. Thank you so much, Dele, for being part of today's show, TM This Morning. Let's get your opinion on this, the fact that, many persons, I think this is the phase 2 or 3 in Gombe, but I think Borno said I've got into phase 7. Somewhere in Castino, Zamfara the other day, we were also told that some of these repentant Boko Haram members were being given scholarship or free education to a certain level. What do you have to say about this? Juxtaposing it to the fact that persons who lost loved ones to the cold hands of death by these insurgent group members are still there wallowing. Some of them are traumatized. And the people who cause all this carnage and the killings are being, in one way or the other, being reintegrated back into society. Full empowerment, if I'm to use that word, from the government.
I think there's a portion in the Bible, maybe those who are very good at studying the Bible would help me, that says that don't allow the witch to kill you, because at the point of judgment, it may reconcile with God, and God will just allow that witch. And that is what is playing out here. Honestly, for me,
I would have loved to ask you the Bible first, but let's let the conversation continue.
I was only told I didn't read.
No problem.
So, you see, technically what you are saying is right, that the deed has been done, and people are sulking, people are displaced, people are not finding it easy. In fact, some people are still begging to be relocated back to their natural habitat, but they couldn't do so because there is still present danger in such environment. Then conversely, those who wrought this huge devastation are now being picked up in bits and pieces and being rehabilitated, being given new life. Because if you give somebody vocational training, you are giving that person new life. And then you are also de-radicalizing
and reintegrating them.
To the extent that, but my question is, how much of this have we seen bringing back the growth and development that we expected to see as contributions of these people that had done so much and incalculable damage to the psyche of Nigerians? We are here when some of these security chiefs will tell us that some people, after being radicalized, had gone back, even with Nigerian arms and ammunition, back to their enclave to also fight back. So, for me, just like any other thing that is happening in Nigeria, how much of profiling do we undertake to ascertain the level of preparedness and the psychological absorbment of those things you are bringing that is new to this person that had been so radical that he feels. Imagine somebody who has been told that once he kills, that he's fighting for God, and that if he dies in the process, there are virgins waiting for him on the other side, on that divide, as if somebody had gone there to come back to relay the message. So how much of, more so, some of these people are not literate enough to even have a flip side of what they have been told. How much of this can they really absorb? And you are bringing them back to the society in their numbers, such that these people can still pose danger to the average Nigerian that are law-abiding. For me, I think what should be concerned about now is, one, rehabilitating those who have been displaced, those who have been sent packing from their natural habitat, and also protecting those that are likely to come harm's way in the process of these people coming back to the society unrestrained and unrestricted. Because I don't see, most of them, they don't really understand what you are talking about. You need to have some measure of foundational education for you to be able to absorb some of those things, because I'm sure that those who are coming to them to talk to them, they are likely to be maybe lecturers, professors, professionals, talking to somebody who is a stark illiterate and telling him that Nigeria is a better place to live in rather than staying in Sambisa forest, when he knows that he was like a lord of the manor in the forest. He commands any woman that he fancies, he eats what he wants, and he has a lot of money to throw around. How can you call that kind of person to say, okay, now we're giving you vocational training and we're setting you up on a small scale investment that is not up to maybe 200,000 or 300,000, when in actual fact that 200,000 when he was in the forest tormenting Nigerians is just nothing to him. So it's a whole lot of, you see, the problem we have in this country is most times when we want to do certain things, we get it wrong by trying to do a comparison. When the Niger Delta guys went to the creek to fight government, it was a just cause. You are taking so much from us and you're not giving anything back to us. Now we want something. How can you now begin to look at amnesty for those people that you have wronged as another reason for giving those people who said they don't want books, they don't want anything?
Talking about amnesty now, Mr. Fanim, I'm sorry to button at this point in time, but talking about amnesty, we've seen some of these terrorists, for example, so the Ado, Aleru or thereabouts, is a broke up piece in the north. And then a few days or thereabouts, we heard about Torji Bello also, going in talks with some sheikh, saying that he's going to be dropping his arms and beads and also releasing hostages and all that. Are we going to see them at this point in time, if they turn down or decide to repent, be also de-radicalized? Because what we're getting from the Nigerian government under this Operation Safe Corridor is that the people who are being de-radicalized and reintegrated back into society are repentant terrorist members. So if these kingpins decided also to repent, are we going to see them back in the society also?
A third should not be considered for any amnesty, because it has wrought so much damage on Nigerian psyche. Those who feels it knows it. I tell you, considering the fact that he's not even a Nigerian in the first place, Turji is from Niger, and he couldn't ply his devilish trade in Niger. He came to Nigeria and he became like an emperor, bestriding the whole country, either by proxy or, this was somebody that went to Sokoto in the last Ramadan festival. After eating and drinking and enjoying himself, he wanted to capital by going into the villages and killing 12 people as mark of celebration.
Now, what's the difference
Are they rams?
What's the difference between what Turji is doing and what Shekaru did in Borno State and what Ado Alero also is doing in his own space? Because we could recall that in Nigeria, a sitting governor, a terrorist was seen being kept in his house. And nothing actually has been done to this particular person to the point that he is still within the corridors of power at this point in time. So what's the difference between the operation of Turji Bello and what all these other persons actually have done in Nigeria?
You see, the modus operandi of a terrorist is to harass, intimidate, kill, maim. And the only way to tackle such a person is just like a lion that tastes human flesh. You just need to kill that lion, because he will not look for any other thing other than the human flesh. So a Turji cannot claim to be repentant after doing so much against Nigerian state. So it is, if that was the case, America would have forgiven Osama bin Laden after years.
Okay, but Osama hadn't repented at that point in time. He was still doing underground damage to the American internal security and all of that. Now, I want us to go back to the issue of rehabilitation. We understand, and I know that you do, that the undercurrents that drive the insecurity in that part of the country had some kind of propelled. No, not just political. I'm talking at the base of it, which is religious fundamentalism, extremism, and all of that. Is it possible that you de-radicalize people by giving them vocational education, skills, and all of that, without getting to the root of the problem? Because in all of this, about 300 former terrorists that are being rehabilitated, nobody has come out to tell us that, look, these people that have clerics that give them another version
of what they used to know.
Which is the driving principle, the undercurrent, the underpinning, that drive that, the momentum of the insurgency, the terrorism, and all of that. Does it look like the people that do this rehabilitation, is it that they don't understand it, or that they simply paper over it? Is it business for them? Because we've been going this back and forth. You rehabilitate people, and in 3 months they serve as moles, to their competitors exposed to the insider. Some of them walk away with arms and all of that.
You see, for me, they said psychological tune-up, which would likely involve profiling them, knowing their psychological state. Some of them would have gone into depression. Some of them would have gone into paranoia. Some of them would have gone into schizophrenia. Some of them would have gone into hallucination and all manners of states of mind. If they are properly profiled along those lines, and then they are now also talking about reorientation. Reorientation means telling them that, look, what you have been fed about Nigeria is not what is the optics out there, that this is Nigeria, this is what you should do, and this is what you should contribute to the development of this country. If they do that perfectly, not just en masse, for those who are receptive to those modules that are going to deploy, I don't have any
How
problem
possible
with
would that be without Alzheimer taking place, or maybe amnesia also playing its role? How possible is it going to be for you to, sit someone who have a particular ideology, who have been acting in line with that ideology, and just sit down and take it something, or maybe the ideology out of the person?
You know that Chukuma will understand.
There are lots of memory.
As a son of teacher parents, you see, it is not all students that assimilate in class. Some will drop out, some will fail outrightly, and some will pass. So we are not expecting that all the 300 would come out better than when they came in. Some will even escape midway during the training and run back to their natural habitat, which is the forest. But what we are saying, generally, even when you are doing this, it is not everybody you just pick and say you are rehabilitating. Some are hardened already, and some are taking position. Some had enjoyed so much in their hideouts that coming to town, it's just like you remove an agbero from the bus stop and say you want to give him a job of 50,000 naira a month. He will do his mental calculation immediately and say, I make an average of 10,000 naira a day. That translates to 300,000. So I will now leave bus stop and come and do a job of 50,000. How will I cope? I need to smoke, I need to drink, I need to enjoy myself, I need to wear new clothes. So these are the things that are there. But if you find somebody who had been threatened by life in the process of being a terrorist, and don't forget, you see, those in Tuji's enclave don't have the same orientation as those in Sambisa Forest. Those ones in Sambisa Forest were basically Boko Haram, contending with book and religion. But these other Tuji's people were clearly hired by those who want to protect illegal gold mining. And as long as government does not take charge of that, those mining sites and take that feeding bottle away from their mouths, there is no way they can be radicalized. And the only way out, if they insist or persist, is to take them out.
All right, then, thank you very much, Delifanimo, for your thoughts there. Even though some will say the last conversation, the last cleric that met with Toji Bello, that discussed with him and he laid down arms, some have said it's just for them to restock, because videos, a day after that conversation, videos of some terrorist-looking individuals on motorbikes were seen in villages shopping, buying foodstuff. So they were stocking up. To replenish, apparently. So some have said, all of this talk about dropping their arms and seeking peace is just for them to, buy some time, get back and refortify themselves. But we'll keep our eyes on this one, and we'll continue to pray for Nigeria in hope that our leaders will do the needful and put a stop to insecurity that is bedeviling parts of the nation. Well, this is how far we can go on the program this morning. But the newspaper review comes up shortly, and we have quite interesting headlines to dive into this morning. One of them is the fact that synthetic hair can cause cancer. And I look at the woman beside me. Oh my. Okay.
I just hope that she'll step back, to tell us all that we need to know about the synthetic hair.
How she feels.
The toxins inside and the possibility that it could cause cancer.
It's a process of fixing the hair.
No, we don't. Don't tell us now. Don't tell us now. You'll be part of the.
But another interesting part is that men are also fixing wigs.
Exactly. I'm happy you understand. Yes, to cover up their bald hair.
Men are fixing wigs. A man like you can choose to fix wig. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Even with your bad hair, you can do that.
Oh well. We'll get into all of that conversation from the 10 o'clock hour. But we must say a very big thank you to you for staying with us. We spoke with Professor Patutomi earlier on in the day. And we also spoke with Roy Oriabo from Benin Station. We thank you very much. Now, keep those conversations going on our different social media platforms. We'll be taking them in subsequent programs. Well, that's it on the show. On behalf of my colleagues here, Chukwuma Okoro, Fina Okechukwu, and the backroom staff, I am Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful morning. Bye for now.
Everybody keep watching Voice of the People. All right?